For centuries, the spices and riches of the East held a powerful allure for Europe. The exotic aromas and flavors of these spices were unlike anything found in the West. They were not just culinary delights, but symbols of status and wealth. The demand for these precious commodities was insatiable, driving European merchants and explorers to seek new ways to access them. Pepper, cinnamon, cloves, and nutmeg were not mere seasonings. They were luxury goods, highly prized and sought after. These spices were used not only to enhance the flavor of food, but also for their medicinal properties and as preservatives. The high value placed on these spices made them worth their weight in gold, and they were often used as currency in trade. The existing trade routes, however, were long and fraught with danger. Caravans had to traverse vast deserts, facing the threat of bandits and harsh weather conditions. Ships navigating through stormy seas risked being lost to the treacherous waters. Narrow mountain passes posed their own challenges, with the constant threat of landslides and ambushes. These perilous journeys made the spices even more valuable by the time they reached European markets. They were also controlled by middlemen, adding layers of cost and complexity. Each intermediary took a share of the profits, driving up the prices even further. The involvement of multiple parties in the trade network meant that the final cost of spices was exorbitantly high. This complex web of trade routes and middlemen made it clear that a more direct route was desperately needed. The desire for a more direct route to this eastern bounty spurred many a dream and launched countless expeditions. European explorers were driven by the promise of immense wealth and the glory of discovery. They meticulously planned their voyages, studying maps and seeking patronage from monarchs and wealthy merchants. The sight of a ship setting off from a European port with its sails billowing in the wind symbolized hope and ambition. It was into this world, ripe with ambition and the spirit of discovery, that Vasco da Gama was born. Growing up in a Portuguese coastal village in the 15th century, young Vasco was surrounded by tales of exploration and adventure. These stories ignited his imagination and fueled his desire to explore the unknown. Little did he know that he would one day play a pivotal role in changing the course of history by finding a sea route to the east. Vasco da Gama was born around 1460 in Sines, Portugal. Growing up in this small coastal town, the sea was a constant presence. Portugal at the time was a nation increasingly turning its gaze towards the vastness of the Atlantic. Prince Henry the Navigator, da Gama's predecessor by a generation, had already established a tradition of exploration and maritime advancement. This environment undoubtedly shaped young Vasco's ambitions. He would have heard tales of distant lands and unimaginable riches, fueling a desire to make his own mark on the world. In 1497, under the patronage of King Manuel I of Portugal, Vasco da Gama embarked on a historic voyage. This journey was not just a mere expedition, it was a quest that would change the course of history. The stakes were incredibly high as the Portuguese crown sought to establish a direct maritime route to the riches of India, bypassing the overland routes dominated by other European powers and Middle Eastern traders. Commanding a fleet of 4 ships, his mission was clear: find a sea route to India. The fleet consisted of the São Gabriel, the São Rafael, the Berrio, and a storage ship. Each vessel was meticulously prepared for the long and arduous journey ahead, stocked with provisions, navigational tools, and a crew of seasoned sailors and adventurers. The journey was fraught with peril. The Atlantic Ocean was vast and unpredictable, and the crew faced numerous challenges from the very start. They encountered fierce storms that threatened to capsize their ships and had to navigate through treacherous waters with limited knowledge and primitive maps. The treacherous waters around the Cape of Good Hope, known to sailors as the Cape of Storms, tested the limits of their ships and their courage. This notorious stretch of sea was infamous for its violent weather and dangerous currents. Many ships had been lost here, and the crew knew that their survival depended on their skill and determination. Scurvy, a debilitating disease, ravaged the crew. The lack of fresh fruits and vegetables led to severe vitamin C deficiency, causing weakness, gum disease, and even death. The cramped and unsanitary conditions on the ships only exacerbated the situation, making the journey even more grueling. Yet, da Gama pressed on, his resolve unwavering. He was driven by a sense of duty and a vision of glory for Portugal. His leadership and determination inspired the crew to push through their hardships, working together to keep the ships on course and maintain their spirits. After months at sea, battling the elements and overcoming countless obstacles, they achieved their goal. They reached the shores of India, opening a new chapter in the age of exploration. This monumental achievement not only established a new trade route, but also marked the beginning of a new era of global interaction and exchange. The success of Vasco da Gama's first voyage paved the way for future expeditions and solidified Portugal's position as a leading maritime power. On May 20, 1498, Vasco da Gama's fleet dropped anchor at Calicut, a bustling port on the southwestern coast of India. This momentous event marked the culmination of years of planning and the beginning of a new era in global trade. Da Gama had successfully forged a direct sea route between Europe and Asia, bypassing the traditional land routes that had been controlled for so long by other powers. His achievement would have profound consequences, shifting the balance of power and ushering in an age of European dominance in maritime trade. Shifting tides of trade. The impact of a sea route. The impact of da Gama's discovery was almost immediate. The opening of the sea route to India marked a significant turning point in global trade. Merchants, who had long relied on overland routes fraught with danger and high costs, now had a direct and safer passage to the riches of the East. This new route not only facilitated the exchange of goods but also ideas, cultures, and technologies. The sea route to India, once a distant dream, was now a reality. This monumental achievement was not just a geographical breakthrough, but a catalyst for economic and political shifts. The Portuguese, with their advanced navigational skills and maritime technology, were at the forefront of this new era. Spices and other luxury goods could be transported directly to Europe, cutting out the middlemen and dramatically reducing costs. This direct trade route meant that European consumers could enjoy exotic goods at lower prices, which in turn spurred demand and further fueled the growth of maritime trade. Portugal, once a relatively minor player on the world stage, was suddenly thrust into a position of economic and political power. The wealth generated from the spice trade allowed Portugal to build a formidable navy and establish colonies, further expanding its influence. Lisbon became a bustling hub of commerce, attracting merchants and adventurers from all over Europe. The traditional trade routes, controlled by the Ottoman Empire and Arab traders, began to decline in importance. The overland routes, once the lifeblood of trade between East and West, saw a significant reduction in traffic. This shift not only impacted the economies of the regions along these routes but also altered the balance of power in the region. A new era of global trade, dominated by European powers, had begun. The sea route to India was just the beginning. European explorers and traders soon ventured further, establishing new trade routes and colonies across the globe. This era of exploration and expansion laid the foundations for the modern global economy, with far-reaching consequences that are still felt today. Consolidation of power. Subsequent voyages and governorship. Vasco da Gama did not rest on his laurels. He undertook 2 more voyages to India, further solidifying Portugal's presence in the region. His tactics, however, were often ruthless. He engaged in conflicts with local rulers and traders, using force to secure trading privileges and establish Portuguese dominance. In 1524, he was appointed governor of Portuguese India, a testament to his achievements and his ruthlessness. His tenure, however, was short-lived. He died in Cochin, India in December of that same year. Legacy of conquest. The darker side of exploration. While celebrated in Portugal as a national hero, Vasco da Gama's legacy is far more complex, particularly when viewed from the perspective of the people he encountered. His voyages, while opening up new trade routes, also paved the way for centuries of European colonialism in Asia. His aggressive tactics, including the bombardment of coastal cities and the taking of hostages, left a trail of destruction and resentment. The wealth that Portugal amassed came at a heavy price, extracted through exploitation and violence. A world transformed. Vasco da Gama's enduring influence. Despite the controversy, Vasco da Gama's impact on world history is undeniable. His voyages ushered in a new era of globalization, connecting continents and cultures in ways never before imagined. The exchange of goods, ideas, and people that followed his discoveries transformed the world. The modern global economy, with its intricate web of trade and interconnectedness, can trace its roots back to the voyages of explorers like da Gama. Conclusion. A complex legacy. Vasco da Gama's story is one of ambition, courage, and discovery. It is also a story of greed, violence, and exploitation. He was a product of his time, a man driven by the prevailing beliefs and ambitions of his age. His legacy is a reminder that history is rarely black and white. It is a tapestry woven from threads of triumph and tragedy, of progress, and its often terrible cost. Understanding da Gama's story, in all its complexity, is essential to understanding the world we live in today.